The scourge of anti-Semitism remains and is expressed both through traditional means as well as via the internet and social media. What can and should the Jewish community be doing to counter this worrying trend? Mayan Hoffman will lead our next conversation.
So today we have with us Alon Liel and Dave Sifri, who are going to tackle a topic that is very important to all of us, combating anti-Semitism. Are we doing enough? Let's start by defining terms. Are the terms anti-Israel and anti-Semitism interchangeable? Alon.
I personally think they are different. Anti-Semitism, or what we usually describe as classic anti-Semitism, is different than what we often describe as anti-Zionism or anti-Israel and so on. I was born in Israel, and you see I have lots of white hair. Long ago, I studied here. All my 3 degrees are from Israeli universities. And first time I went abroad was already as a diplomat. I spent a lot of years abroad as a diplomat, and I was never in my life called a bloody Jew. And never in my life faced classic anti-Semitism. But I faced a lot of anti-Israeli feelings, and there was often called, if I can put it in a short term, bloody Israeli.
Wow.
So obviously, from my own personal history, I see this as 2 different things coming from different sources. Israel has, over the 70 years of its life, developed an Israeli identity that is not identical to the diaspora, the Jewish world as a whole, or the Jewish diaspora and so on. From my experience, the opposition I had as an Israeli came or from Islamic Muslim circles or from very liberal circles that were critical about Israel's Middle Eastern policy, Israeli Palestinian policy, and so on. And the opposition, the anti-Semitism the Jews were facing was coming from different parts of the political maps abroad, especially from the extreme right, neo-Nazi circles and so on. So just to sum up the answer, I see it as having different origins, and that we have to fight each one of them in different methods.
That makes sense. Thanks so much for that. So now, Dave, the ADL, where you're coming from, has a tremendous amount of research actually looking at this growing trend of anti-Semitism, whether it's from the far left, the far right, or there's some classic anti-Semitism somewhere in the middle. We know that there is a spike. So tell me about some of your online and offline findings. You know, if I recall, things aren't looking so good.
Yeah, you're unfortunately true. It's what we found was in our most recent survey in 2019, ADL has been conducting audits since 1979 of anti-Semitic incidents throughout the United States. And in 2019, there was a 12% increase. So we had recorded 2,107 anti-Semitic incidents in that year of all sorts of different severities. Now, that's a 12% increase from what we saw in 2018, and it actually marked the highest number on record since ADL began tracking anti-Semitic incidents in 1979. Now, of those incidents recorded in 2019, 1,127, so about a 6% increase, were cases of harassment. 919 were cases of vandalism, including synagogue and cemetery desecration. And that was a 19% increase from 2018. Now, on top of this, what we found that along with the physical issues that, where people were confronted on the street or property violence, that online hate and harassment has also been significantly increasing. And so ADL has been tracking this at the Center for Technology and Society, where I'm the head, for a number of years now. And our most recent report came out in February of 2020 that showed that 33% of the Jewish respondents of a nationally representative survey experienced online harassment.
Wow.
And of which 20% experienced severe harassment. Now, this actually is down slightly from 2019, but what we found was that harassment in general across all different groups was up significantly. So Muslim respondents and also, African American, Hispanic as well. Now, what we found though was that for people who were reporting identity-based or religion-based harassment, that those numbers were up. So, we're seeing the amount of hate and harassment. First of all, it's highly correlative across a variety of different targets. And Jews are one of those targets, and almost always near the top. But also that these are forming a pattern of a general intolerance that is being shown online as well as offline in real-world incidents.
Very scary, what's going on over there. And specifically, when we think about online networks, we know there's been a big challenge and a fight with Facebook and with Twitter specifically. Now, Dave, what role is Facebook playing in causing anti-Semitism or allowing anti-Semitism to flourish, and what needs to change there?
Yeah, it's really disappointing that as we have been interacting with all of the major policy, platform, and product teams at the different social networking sites, what we found is that when most people, when they go to work at these companies, no one walks into the office saying, gee, how can I promote more hate? But what happens is that the algorithms, as they're designed, are designed to increase what's called engagement. So getting you to the screen and getting you to like and to share things. And so what has happened is those algorithms, and in particular in Facebook's case, because they're the most egregious offender here and the largest social networking platform, they end up recommending groups, for example. So, extremist groups, right-wing groups, alt-right groups, conspiracy theory groups like QAnon, that not only do they allow that hatred to continue, and very often the tropes and the insults that they use are very common anti-Semitic tropes around Jews controlling the world, or George Soros, and the like, the Jews as puppet masters as well, and that those tropes are allowed to stay on the platform and not removed. And then on top of it, when someone starts investigating these ideas, the recommendations for new groups start to pop up, which actually get you to join this echo chamber. And what we've seen is that causes more and more radicalization of people towards these ideologies.
Right, and we have seen, of course, that now we know that the online does influence what happens offline. Many of our recent attacks were first posted on online networks, their intentions, or they were engaged in some of these communities, so it is very scary.
No question, and in fact, many people don't even join what you would be considered an offline anti-Semitic group, but they go and take individual actions with the feeling that they are a part of this online community and that they're taking it for that online community.
Amazing. So I want to move back a minute to you, Alon, and ask you if you can just, the name of the panel, as we said at the beginning, is Combating Anti-Semitism. Are we doing enough? So I guess the question is, are we?
I can take it from the Israeli angle, not from ADL's angle. And in Israel, the worries are two mostly. One, the physical safety of Jews abroad. We hear about swastikas, we hear about other kind of harassment and so on, but Israel gets involved mostly when Jews are in danger as Jews. And I don't think it's a big secret, but we always dealt with it. We always guided communities. We always were very, very sensitive to it. And this is something that Israel is dealing with. Regarding the other aspects that Dave spoke about, I think Israel should not lead this type of battle. If there are swastikas in a cemetery in Marseille or these kind of things, usually the local community, local Jewish community, asks our embassies to stay aside. And they say it's a matter that between us and the police and so on. And I think we should be very sensitive not to take the lead and combat local anti-Semitism in different countries with the Israeli flag or under the title of Israeli embassy or Israeli government and so on.
That's
Another
very
aspect,
interesting.
I said this is one aspect. The second one that is causing a lot of concern in Israel and is seen as the modern anti-Semitism is BDS.
Right.
Israel, as you know, is fighting BDS. The budget of fighting BDS is about 3 times the budget of our normal Hasbara project, Hasbara department or Hasbara goals.
Which indicates, I guess, that we are trying to do something in order to fight it. We are getting short on time, and I do want to go back to Dave for just a minute because, Dave, I want to ask you as well. When we talk about the theme of this panel, which is combating anti-Semitism, are we doing enough? You're sitting there in the United States. We have groups all over the world and all over the United States that are opening up in order to tackle the problem of anti-Semitism. But as you noted, the statistics are not looking better despite all of those groups. So what are we doing wrong?
Yeah, and it's very troubling. I mean, even in 2019, there were 3 major attacks on the Jewish community, here in the United States, and a white supremacist opening fire at the Chabad of Poway, California on April 27th. 2 individuals, one of whom was associated with the anti-Semitic Black Hebrew Israelite sect that attacked a Jewish grocery store in Jersey City on December 10th. And on December 28th, an individual attacking a Hanukkah party at the home of a rabbi in Monsey, New York, with a knife, resulting in 4 injuries and 1 fatality. So these incidents are real and they are happening. And it's important that we need to be able to get to the root of this. Some of this is, I think, the fact that a lot of this kind of extremist and violent rhetoric has been normalized in the political discourse. And then you have people who are taking it into their own hands. They see this as something that, we can have a march in Charlottesville and we can bring out our torches and say that the Jews will not replace us. And we're, fine and normal people, right? They're good people on both sides. And so some of this is around how leaders around the world react to this and, how we respond. But the other thing is also online. And one of the initiatives that ADL has been doing most recently is around trying to better understand the extent of hate and anti-Semitism that's going on online. And so we've been building something that we call the Online Hate Index. It's actually a state of artificial intelligence classifiers that have been trained by experts at our Center on Extremism to better understand and start to measure the amount of anti-Semitism online and be able to then see, because you can't manage what you don't measure. So the first step is just measurement and trying to get some clearer measurement at scale of what's really going on. And what we're seeing so far is that, that those numbers, there's a lot of hate and harassment, especially anti-Semitism, done in a casual way.
Right, as you said before, right, very much so. So unfortunately, we are going to have to wrap up, so we have to end the panel now. But I want to thank you both for being here and bringing to highlight both the Israeli perspective, which helped to give us an idea of where anti-Israel versus anti-Israel versus anti-Semitism versus BDS, and also the fact that as ADL, as Dave has pointed out, the numbers are growing, and so we do need to be combating anti-Semitism all the time. Thank you both so much.
Bye-bye. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Alon, nice to meet you.
Bye
You
bye.
too.